Hello, as you join us, please let us know in the chat if you can hear me clearly. And also type your name and where you are joining us from in the chat, please. Okay, Bill, welcome. Mohammed, Walid, can you please tell us where you are joining us from? At the moment, all the participants will be muted, and you will have the possibility later to ask questions if you need to talk on the mic. All right, 1 more minute to go. As we have more participants joining us, please let me know if you can hear me well. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining this edition of our webinar series. I'm very honored, thrilled, and pleased to welcome you on the panel discussion. Today, we will be sharing the story of internet exchange points in Africa. And together with me, we've gathered a next team panel of experts who will be sharing on the story of internet exchange points in Africa. So just a few house rules to start with. By this time, everyone here must be already familiar with the Zoom platform. If you're having the latest version of Zoom, most of the controls are at the bottom of the screen. The most important ones are the chat, the Q&A, and how to raise your hand. So use the chat if you have any comment or any issue to report during the webinar. If you have a question, please type in use the Q&A session. This webinar will be in English, and it will be recorded and also live on our YouTube channel. So if you have issues or you know someone having issues joining on Zoom, you can direct them to our YouTube channel where this is live right now. So the meeting shall be guided by the Code of Conduct of Afrinic and our terms and conditions, which is available on our website. Please, so when you have your comments, share them in the chat. If you have questions, use the Q&A section so that we don't miss on your questions. So as I said earlier, today's sessions will focus on the story of internet exchange points in Africa. And I am Musa Stephen Honlue, and today I will be your moderator. So as we know already, IXPs play a crucial role in facilitating local internet traffic exchange and improving connectivity within Africa. And today, we've been able to gather a next team panel of experts who have been actively involved in shaping the Africa Internet Exchange Points landscape. Please join me in welcoming them. So today we have with us Mrs. Fiona Asonga, who is CEO of Technology Service Providers of Kenya, that is TESPOC. We have Mr. Kai Spencer, Executive Director of the Ugandan Internet Exchange Point, UIXP. Mr. Nishal Gobudan, Senior Internet Infrastructure Analyst at Packet Clearing House, that's PCH. Mr. Donald Jolie, Operations Support at the Durban Internet Exchange Point, DINGS. Mr. Jean-Baptiste Milogo, Director of Internet Technology and Development at the Internet Society, ISOC, and Mr. Cedric Mbeyet, who is Community Engagement Manager at Afrinic. Before we delve into the discussion, let's give 1 minute to each panelist so that they can briefly introduce themselves and share with us their experience and involvement within the African Internet Exchange Point community. We'll start with Mrs. Fiona Asonga. Please, could you tell us a bit about yourself and your involvement in the Internet Exchange Points in Africa?
It's afternoon in Nairobi, so good afternoon, everyone, but good morning and good evening, depending on where you're listening to us from. I have been at TESPOC from 2005, and TESPOC is it started off as the Telecommunication Service Providers Association of Kenya, but today it is the Technology Service Providers Association of Kenya, and I'll later explain why the change of name. And TESPOC runs the Kenya Internet Exchange Point, and we also offer other services along with the exchange point that I will share as we move along in explaining what we do. And at TESPOC, I am the Chief Executive Officer, but that is a position that has been developed and grown over time. It didn't start with all these structures in place, but there's been a journey through which I'll be taking you through on how we got to have the structures in place. And I'm just looking forward to being able to share the story of the exchange point. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. Over to you, Kyle.
Yeah, hi. As I said, my name is Kyle Spencer, and I'm the Executive Director of the Uganda Internet Exchange, and I'm looking forward to sharing a bit about our story and where we see things going forward.
Okay, Nishal, can you introduce yourself and your involvement in the IXPs community?
Thanks, Stephen. My name is Nishal Gobadan. I guess I got introduced to exchange points when I was still a network engineer back in the 90s. Ooh, giving my age away. When we were responsible for then running the Johannesburg exchange point as the host. And I thought that this was a really interesting thing that we did, and I didn't quite understand it then. So I spent some time learning about it. And over the years, I've gotten more and more involved from helping other exchange points start, not just in my country, but in other places in Africa. And today I work at PCH, or rather, I like to say today I work for the internet, and PCH pays me to make sure that the internet continues to have more stable and robust internet exchange points. And we help to develop this all over the world. I'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of each and what I see as parallels between Africa and different areas through the core.
Oh, thank you, Nishal. Thank you. Donald, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hi. My name is Donald Jolly, and I live in Durban, South Africa. Part of the operations support team at IXPs. We currently run 3 internet exchange points in South Africa, soon to be 4. I'm actually down in Port Elizabeth at the moment, where we will be launching our 4th exchange point in South Africa next month. So very excited about that, and sharing the story about how the exchange points have grown in South Africa.
Okay, thank you. Over to you, Jean-Baptiste.
Thanks, Stefan. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jean-Baptiste Milogo. I'm based in Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso. I'm next door engineer. I'm since a decade in the development of network infrastructure in Africa. I have been involved also in ICT infrastructure development of another site in Africa. So I'm here today to share with you the experience of Burkina Faso Internet Exchange Point, where I stand as Executive Director. But I will also use my hat like Director for Internet Technology and Development at Internet Society, and share what we are doing at Internet Society to support those IXP developments in Africa. Thank you.
Great. Looking forward to these exciting exchanges. And now that we've familiarized ourselves with our panelists, let's move on to our discussions. Our first question is directed to Nishal. Can you please briefly tell us what internet exchange points are and their importance to end users as well as our economies?
Okay, sure. Before I start, I just want to say that I'm a fill-in. The person that was actually supposed to be on the call is my colleague Sarah Alamin, who pretty much does the same set of work that I do at PCH. Unfortunately, Sarah is caught up in Sudan at this point. Would it be, I hope it's not extending my liberties if I ask if we could have a minute's silence prayer, if you're religious, just for what's happening in Sudan.
Sure. Good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Let's hope that situation resolves itself. You know, when we started talking about internet exchange points and peering a long time ago, it was a group of techies that used to talk to each other. The oldest internet exchange point in Africa is 27 years old. And peering and internet exchanges have always been seen as very technical things. And I think that largely because they've been seen as these technical constructs, a lot of other people have been scared away over time. But in reality, what an internet exchange point is it's simply a meeting place for networks that want to work with each other to meet and exchange bandwidth. This act of exchanging bandwidth creates a service. We call that service peering. This act of exchanging bandwidth, this act of peering or interconnecting with each other has a real economic benefit. When you change traffic with somebody in your country at an internet exchange point in your country, you're preventing resources from your country from going out of your country, out into the world, only to be brought back in at some cost later on. So when you ask me what internet exchanges are today and what the value is for end users today, the conversation has changed. We don't talk about peering and BGP at internet exchanges anymore. Of course, those things are absolutely necessary. The network engineers that connect to internet exchanges need to understand BGP. And, you know, Africa has grown in the past 30 years. We're not looking at only 30 network engineers that can do BGP. We've got hundreds. I've trained thousands of engineers on this continent, and I know that they can do BGP. But what we need to do now is to make sure that the people that are meant to be connecting to these internet exchanges, the network engineers and the networks, that they understand the true economic value of saying, I want to optimize my connection to the internet exchange point. I want to make sure that when my network picks how to send traffic to the rest of, whoever I want to send traffic to, the first place that I look for changing this traffic is at the internet exchange points. And I can tell you, we've got internet exchange points in Africa that don't perform well because there are routing policies from network operators here that don't follow that very simple rule. They have routing policies that don't say, choose to send traffic over the internet exchange point versus any other path. When you don't do that, you do something that I think is anathemical to what an internet exchange point is. And I'm going to say something now that I hope Fiona and some of the others are going to talk about a bit later. But all this time we've been building exchanges, we built it with one theme, and that is to keep resources, to keep our cache, to keep our traffic, all of those are resources, right? To keep all of that inside Africa. And that needs to be the focus today, I think, when we talk about building resources, building internet exchanges. And that's just, and that is to make sure that we are not exporting capital to other countries, to other parts of the more developed world, for example. We started that idea many years ago. We started this idea of saying we're building exchanges, and one of the reasons that we're building exchanges is to help to keep our money in our country. We don't have to pay expensive transit providers. Today we talk about things like cybersecurity benefits and how domestic internet exchange points help your country in the event of a cyber outage. there's some real world stuff. You took a minute silence to talk about Sudan, but I can tell you that the country to the left of Sudan is Chad. Chad is a landlocked country. And right now, one of the reasons that the internet in Chad is working better than it did 2 or 3 weeks ago, or rather 2 or 3 months ago, is because Chad now has an internet exchange point. Whereas Chad was really, really dependent on connecting into Sudan to get to the internet, and Sudan is pretty much offline now. Chad can enjoy better interconnectivity, at least amongst its service providers, because there's a domestic location where the service providers can change traffic. So you build exchanges to do all of the things that I've been saying, and pretty much for all the things that you're going to be hearing everybody else here saying, but you also don't take into account that you build internet exchanges to deal with things we don't think about, like war, right? I mean, I'm sure what's happening there is something that we never, ever, ever want to happen anywhere else. But the real value you're getting, I mean, I can't think of a better example to point to right now than saying, this is the value that the exchange in Chad is bringing in a moment where their internet connectivity is really, really difficult to get via Sudan. The exchange is enabling domestic traffic exchange. I have a lot more to say, but I know that you have a lot of questions. And if we don't have questions, we can come back into how the exchanges cover some of the items that I've mentioned.
Just to pick on one of the points that you mentioned, how is security, national security, better served by functioning internet exchange points?
Well, we live in an age of surveillance, right? I think it was 2013, Snowden became a headline overnight when he exposed what some of the governments were doing and what is happening out there to traffic. When we don't have an internet exchange, when you don't have an internet exchange in your country, when the only way for you to change traffic with another network is outside of your country, in another country, you're paying for that privilege. So you're paying to send packets to leave your country to go to, let's say, the United Kingdom, right? Because most of African traffic ends up in Europe, it seems. So you're paying for traffic to get to the UK. Once it's in the UK, you have no idea what UK network operators might be doing to the traffic. You have no idea what the UK, what GCHQ or anybody might be able to do to that traffic. You're putting yourself out at risk. Now, if you're sending traffic to the UK, only for it to go through a UK internet exchange point, to be delivered to a transit provider, to be delivered to the network that you're meant to be peering with, or the network that operates in your country, by simply peering with the network in your country, you're removing that entire element of risk, that element of I don't know, by sending my traffic to the UK. Regardless of the performance benefits that you're going to get out of this, because the traffic is now going across town instead of going all the way into the UK, regardless of the economic costs you're going to get, because it's cheaper to send packets across the city than it is to send packets across the ocean and into another country, you're going to get the very definite security benefit. And sure, your own secret police in your country might be sniffing your traffic, but you're living in the country, you're subject to those laws, and the secret police in your country are generally also subject to those laws, unlike the GCHQ and or others who don't care about your laws.
Exactly. Thank you, Nishal. Now, I know you mentioned something already about the landscape of these IXPs in Africa. Please, could you, as an infrastructure analyst, tell us more about the landscape? How is it today in Africa, and the trends and challenges?
All right. Well, I think, in the spirit of good news, I think we've come a long way in terms of where we were having exchanges, if you have to look back 20 years. And that's fantastic. But I think that we should also look, I'm an engineer, and the thing we always say about engineers is we judge by results. And I think we need to look at where we want to go. There's still quite a few countries in Africa, I'll look it up when I get a break now, that do not have internet exchange points. And it's a really a good it's a good exercise to start to think about why they don't have internet exchange points. The truth of the matter is that a lot of the countries that are not, let's call them the North, right, For the countries that are not in the north, the truth of the matter is that a lot of the sort of southern-facing countries have very, very strong incumbent telcos, or they have incumbent telcos that are able to sway the way regulation works inside a country and to maximize their short-term earnings. When I say short-term earnings, I mean the earnings that they're making now by selling IP transport, by selling, IP transit and transport to sort of smaller ISPs in the country. To maximize those earnings, those incumbents are trying to fight the idea of internet exchanges. You want to collect stories? I can tell you stories about internet exchange points that went up in certain countries in Africa and that were taken down the next day by presidential officers because they were told that the exchange is a threat to national security. You know, all of those countries that had Arab Spring, well, they had Arab Springs because there was an exchange in the country. And if you have an exchange in your country, then you're going to have an Arab Spring happen here and your government's going to be toppled. That is nonsensical on so many terms. But the point is that there's a remarkable lack of education on how and what internet exchange points are, what they're meant to do, that needs to be pushed to some of these decision makers. And that's part of the stuff that I mentioned. I work at PCH, and that's part of the stuff that PCH has been doing. So we've been around since 93 now, I think. And we've been spending a lot of that time trying to teach regulators, trying to teach governments, trying to teach network operators that exchange points are this, they're this nice thing in the internet. They're this thing where we're not competing with anybody else. They're this element where we are working together, where you have to learn to trust your competitor, which I think is a big problem for a lot of operators in Africa. But when we look at the established internet exchanges, when you look at the Jinx, for example, when you look at the KIXP in Nairobi, you can see working examples of how operators who said, hang on, we see that there's something we can both benefit from here. So we're going to hold hands and we're going to try to make this peering thing work. You can see those tangible benefits come out. So the gains are well known. We know that the gains are well known. It's very easy to spot this. But yet somehow there are these strong incumbents who feel that they're going to lose market share and they're not going to engage. And the sad part of it is that really is what is causing those countries to not have any kind of internet development. Because the IX doesn't just feed your local market. You know, when we started talking about internet exchange points many, many years ago, we used to always talk about internet exchange points feeding your domestic market, because the internet was largely probably, you know, your domestic market, how to get people online. Today, an internet exchange point is a lot more than that. When we PCH, when we talk about internet exchange points, we try to explain the value proposition to an internet exchange point. I always tie it into FDI, foreign direct investment. Because a working internet exchange point in your country is a really, really good signal to foreign network operators that the market is mature, the market is ready for investment, and there are people to do business with. And there's one thing I always tell network operators or potential internet exchange point folks when they start, and I'm sorry, I'm doing this quite quickly. I usually have a whole slide deck that I explain this from. But the one thing is true about an internet exchange, and this is why we encourage the internet exchanges to make themselves look appealing to foreign networks. When a foreign network from somewhere, let's say the United States, when they connect to your internet exchange point, the cost for your domestic operators to send traffic to this now foreign network becomes almost zero. It's the cost of putting fiber across town. And that is so much cheaper than the cost of, well, putting fiber all the way into the US or putting fiber all the way into the UK to speak to this operator. So the conversation for exchanges, still tying it to economic matters, is now a case of saying, we need to set up an internet exchange to get domestic connectivity working. That's a no-brainer, I believe. That's the start of what you do. The internet exchange starts to create local interconnectivity, to build a market, to build a meeting place, an exchange environment where the domestic network operators can interconnect and peer with each other. This is how it starts. But the long-term plan of all of these exchanges is always to say, once we've gotten the very basic part of it done, the step one, the domestic network operators, we now need to think about how do we bring in, let's call them foreign network operators. And a foreign network operator might be an operator from a bigger city in your country. It might be an operator from a neighboring country that's next door, that is not that far away from you. The example I always use is Goma in DRC and Kigali. You know, to me, it's Kigali and Goma. You should be moving traffic between the two cities because you're so close to each other. And then, of course, foreign from outside.
Thank you very much, Nishal. That is insightful. I know you have a lot to say about Internet Exchange Point and peering as a whole. But let's now move to Fiona. Ms. Fiona, please, as CEO of TESPOC, can you please tell us the journey of TESPOC and its roles in the role of TESPOC in establishing and operating IXPs in Kenya?
Thank you so much. The TESPOC was set up in 1999 as an industry association. But the initial intention for the founders of TESPOC was they wanted to start an exchange point immediately. Then they realized they couldn't because the community was scattered. The service providers were not known who they were. And it was at a period when the regulator was still being established. So there wasn't a place where you could get all the information, but they tried to see how to reach out and come together. So initially they got everybody who was doing anything in the internet space and brought them together. And when they came together, then the same month is when the regulator was being formed. So they set up the Telecommunication Service Providers Association in September of 1999, so that they could make sure that within as the then regulator was being set up, the Communications Commission of Kenya, they would be able to be involved in making sure that the licensing regime would work for them. So right from the onset, it was the main interests. Though being the exchange point, they started off first, they realized they needed to make sure that licensing issues were well addressed. Then by 2000, they had already gotten a substantial number of service providers who had come in and the regulator was set up. So they came in and they were able to be issued licenses by the regulator. And they wanted now to set up the exchange point. So they knew that exchange points brought together the different service providers, and they were there then, and they wanted to now begin to exchange traffic. They got UNDP to make a contribution, and Cisco made a contribution of the peering equipment, and they set up the KXP. Only for the then newly established Telkom Kenya, because it was now there'd been a big company called Kenya Post and Telecommunication that was broken down to establish Telkom Kenya, to establish the regulator, and to set up the National Communication Secretariat. And then there was the Communication Tribunal, and Safaricom came out of that big corporation. And so Telkom Kenya felt that handling of all traffic, internet traffic, was supposed to be their mandate. That was their previous. So TESPOC coming in with an exchange point was in breach of the existing law. And as soon as the announcement went out that the Kenya Internet Exchange Point had been set up, 2 days later, the then technical team of KXP that consisted of Mr. Brian Longwe and Mr. Michuki Mwangi were visited and asked to shut down the equipment, and it was confiscated. And so a court battle that lasted 2 years began. And it was only until 2002 that it was now agreed that an exchange point was not part of Telkom Kenya's mandate, and the role and function of the exchange point were now understood by the ministry, by the then new regulator, by every stakeholder that was available then. However, a condition was given for the exchange point to have a license. And so we became the first internet exchange point in the world to be issued a license by the regulator. Wow. The equipment was returned, and on the 14th of February, 2002, KXP began its operations. In between the time of the court case, that became also an opportunity for publicity for TESPOC to reach out to other service providers about the importance of keeping local traffic local, the importance of coming to the exchange point. So as soon as the exchange point was set up, because the first time it had 3 peers. Now the second opening had 8 peers ready who joined immediately. We had the incumbent, then Telkom Kenya, come in and take a free port, because we needed to prove to them that we were not going to be an international gateway. We were only going to be handling local traffic. And so they came in to monitor the traffic at that time. And so that is where the journey for KXP at that time began. And then TESPOC realized that to keep KXP operational, we had to do continuous advocacy and capacity building within government, within the regulator. We had to also make them understand the importance of having this shared infrastructure and why then it needed to exist. And over the years, as we moved along, we began to improve on our processes. We began to improve on the equipment, the membership grow. When I joined TESPOC in 2005, there were 8 peers at the exchange point. And today we have 140 peers. And so that is the growth that has happened over a period of time, but it wasn't a journey that didn't take effort. There was work that came into making sure that the exchange point was functional, that it was meeting the needs of the community. So it's been a journey of interacting with the stakeholders, where we constantly have to do membership surveys, asking members, what can we do to improve, listening to the members as they come in to see what we can do. As we began to open up to content distribution networks, especially the global one, we realized that we needed to change our peering policy. Initially, it had been, it was compulsory for everyone to peer with their route server. We've since moved off that. So at the exchange point today, there is multilateral peering, there is bilateral peering happening, and so it's open. We are also now being able to find ways of bringing on board. So we've had to change our equipment over a period of time. So making sure that whatever we do is able to meet the costs of the exchange point. We have in the past gotten a lot of support from entities like PCH, ISOC, who give us gear to help with value add services at the exchange point. So being able to put in the right value adds at the exchange point has helped also in terms of attracting other international peers into our exchange. And the value add services have been very helpful in just making the exchange point relevant to the local ecosystem, because then if you don't have the value adds, it becomes very difficult to be able to convince entities on why they should not do their bilateral pairings outside and bring that traffic instead to the exchange. So when you have other value adds that they can also pick, then they convincing them to come in, it becomes an easier process. It has been a journey of also ensuring that we have network integrity. And by network integrity, I mean that just making sure we look out for traffic that would be coming or being brought by an entity to the exchange that should not be coming into the exchange, and advising the relevant service providers on what needs to be done. And sometimes we found that we needed to also do a lot of capacity building. So right from the onset, there's been trainings that we did with Michuki Mwangi, trainings we did with ISOC, trainings we've done with PCH, trainings we've done with the different partners that we have, Afrinic included, to just help the service providers appreciate the whole peering process, focusing on networks, focusing on BGP, focusing on routing, just making sure that the teams of our members understand what needs to be done and what is expected, so that they can configure correctly and they can be able to address issues in the traffic at the exchange and on their ports as they arise, and being able to just give continuous support 24/7, 365. There's always someone available on call to respond to members and to help them and guide them on their traffic issues at the exchange. In addition, we've had to also we've worked with ISOC on developing best practices for our membership in terms of network management. And these are things that we constantly improve on and share with our members. So to get KXP to where it's been today has been a concerted effort of the membership and making sure that every category of member is at least represented on the board. The exchange point is run by a board of directors of TESPOC, and just making sure that the interests of the exchange point peers are addressed. So we have members of different categories, and we always make sure during every annual meeting that these are represented at the board level. And every year we do appoint new board members. So governance has been a critical part of enabling us to keep the KXP strong. And the community at KXP has been very involved in developing even the KXP, the strategy for TESPOC, that includes not just KXP, but the advocacy issues around the exchange point. We've had to do a lot of advocacy within our space. And just being able to develop a strategy that can help the exchange point and the association as a whole develop. And part of the things that strategy led to in 2014 was us putting in place a computer security incidents response team that today is led by Alan Odaba, who also supports at the exchange. But his core function is looking out for network integrity and alerting members when we see too many issues in your traffic. We give you a heads up and let you know what you need to look out for. And all this, we do it on peer-to-peer. We do not put it in the public domain, though sometimes we do release a general alert on an issue we think is of concern to the peers at KXP, a security issue, and let them know what they need to do and share the alerts with them. And I think in a nutshell, that would address the question of our establishment and the role that we've had. And today we've got POPs for KXP Nairobi in Mombasa. Under the new government strategy for the digital economy, we have requested to put up POPs across the country. So we are looking at a new POP in the Mount Kenya region and another POP in the Western region between Eldoret and Kisumu, around there. So we are in the process of putting up those POPs so that we can make the exchange point as efficient as possible to the end users who depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fiona. This is quite an enriching journey, and few things that I picked there is being compliant with the local legislation, somehow comply to educate the government, educate the community, and one key important thing that you mentioned, value added additional services will attract a member. I think Nishal also touched a bit on that. If you bring the external, like the content providers to your facilities, then you attract more people, because then you make sure that you are keeping a lot of traffic local, and also you are reducing on cost. Thank you very much, Ms. Fiona. Let's now have Mr. Kyle to tell us his story and
great. Yeah. And I also have a couple slides to share to help make sure that I don't stray off of the narrative, but I'll try to be brief. And if anybody has any questions at the end of this, please just feel free to ask. So
all right. Thank you.
Screen real quick. I hope everybody can see that. Just shout somebody to let me know.
Yeah, we can see your screen. Maybe you
Great.
want to.
So,
okay.
I'll spare everybody the intro to what an exchange point is. Basically, networks come together, interconnect with each other through an exchange. If you want to learn more and you're not overly familiar, you can go to our website at uixp.co.ug, and there's a link to a video there that does a better job than I can of describing this. But the Internet Exchange in Uganda is a non-profit organization. We are not related to an ISPA, etc. We were founded in 2001. Back before 2009, East Africa was connected to the world by satellite, so satellite bandwidth was very expensive. Traffic between networks was going through satellite, even to go to another network in Uganda. And so Some very forward-thinking people with support from the UCC got together and convinced some networks to peer. And then in 2009, the submarine cables came, and the cost of the internet went down, and utilization went up, etc. And so particularly back in the satellite days, you know, it was an economic or commercial incentive to do this thing, and performance as well, because if you have 1,200 milliseconds round trip or more between networks through space, there's certain services that just can't operate across in the country very easily. So it unlocked a lot of activities over the internet, made the internet cheaper. As we say, every bit counts. So we had less of a dramatic upbringing initially than Kenya. We didn't get shut down by the government. It was supported, but we had a troubling adolescence, if you will, which I'll get to in a little bit. But where we are today is we have 33 networks connected approximately. We were doing around 50 Gbps until we had a cascading content delivery network outage. And I think this is kind of an interesting cautionary tale, so I'll talk about it briefly. We had multiple content delivery networks at the exchange, Akamai, Google, Facebook at the time. Google was transitioning from a cache to an actual peering session. And as part of that, they had to get transport from Mombasa through Kenya into Uganda and then connect to the exchange. But that proved very unstable because of the nature of infrastructure provision in our region. And when that traffic got lost from the exchange, it put pressure on our Akamai cache fill providers upstream. They did not have the capacity to not get Google traffic from the exchange and provide cache fill to Akamai. And so the instability on the Google link took down the Akamai cache, which caused some other cascading problems. And so at the moment, we're down to 5 gigabits per second, which is entirely local traffic. On the bright side, in the near future, we are bringing up some other CDNs. We're in the process of spinning up more than one. We're getting restorations from these other networks. We're hoping to bring a couple of these back online after having found alternative solutions for transport and cache fill, depending on the case. But we've got reliable infrastructure. We've got route servers. Most networks at the exchange do multilateral peering, I think, except 2 or 3. So yeah, aside from the temporary traffic disruption, things are good. We are multi-site. We have a legacy facility in downtown Kampala. That's the old regulators building. They've since moved out. It's a commercial building now. And we are also in Raxio Data Center, which is Uganda's first carrier-neutral data center. Both of our sites are linked together, so no matter where you come in and peer, you talk to all networks connected at either point on the exchange. This is a picture of the new facility in Namanve, which is just outside of Kampala. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes to get there, depending on traffic from the downtown CBD. A little bit about our challenges and successes over the years, and this kind of ties a little bit into our history too. In order to get this thing started up, we had to unify a competitive industry. It was a matter of convincing people that, you know, you've got the milk, I've got the cereal, and our customers are going to be happy if they can put both together. We managed to get donations from ISOC, NSRC, PCH, and others, of which for which we are eternally grateful, and I don't think we'd be where we are today without that. We established a close relationship with the Research and Education Network in Uganda, which has been extremely beneficial because they have non-commercial interests and we can support each other in interesting ways that are harder to do with commercial networks. And that's helped really build out the exchange. We managed to attract content delivery networks with the support from some really good people inside some of those networks, including Andrew Baskett and others early on. And that really helped drive more connectivity networks to our exchange, including networks from adjacent regional countries. We managed to implement a sustainability model. We implemented port fees. That was a dramatic struggle, but we ultimately pulled it off, and everybody's together on this today, and it's been working sustainably. We managed to stabilize our infrastructure following the generation of a revenue or income source, let's say. So once we had some money, we were able to address some chronic instability issues. We managed to establish some significant cash reserves. We managed to preserve IXP competition in our market because for a period of time around 2014, 2015, was some national debate about how internet exchange points should be handled and whether they should be sort of run by the government or the private sector. But we've ultimately all settled on a sort of competitive private sector approach, and that seems to be happy with everybody. And now we're in a difficult macroeconomic environment. I mean, the global economic environment is tough for a variety of reasons. Also in Uganda, we have our own policy and economic challenges. We've got some regulatory issues. I mean, the Uganda Communications Commission does pretty well, but the licensing costs are a burden for small networks. Tax compliance burdens are probably the most serious challenge. Over 50% of the cost of internet access in Uganda now is tax. As an exchange, and also the actual burden of compliance, the way that companies in Uganda have to interface with the revenue authority is extremely taxing, if you will. We also have new multi-site operational costs, particularly from our dark fiber redundant link between our two sites, and the cascading CDN outages, which we were building all this out for, have suppressed our income at the same time as we have these new costs, and we're sort of under growing financial pressure, but we're surviving that thanks to the cash reserves, and we hope to be more cash flow positive in the future. So we're optimistic despite the challenges. Looking forward, as I mentioned, we're looking to restore the down CDNs. We're deploying a couple new ones. We're going to start targeting more local enterprise and regional and international networks to try to attract them to the exchange. Additional value-added services. We want to spin up some software caches, an NTP server, etc. We want to increase automation of our invoicing and management systems, and particularly if we can automate some tax stuff, because the Revenue Authority has an API for their system. We would love that. Closer industry collaboration, bringing people together from the ISP Association, the Raxio Data Center, the ICT Association to promote better policy. And then we're also increasing our involvement in regional internet bodies like the African IXP Association, AFPIF, and AFNOG. So if anybody has any questions when we're all done, please feel free to ask. I'm happy to elaborate more on any of the stuff that I've discussed or other issues that might arise. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle, for that interesting presentation. Let me just pick this one question from the Q&A. How have you been able to cooperate with Renew? How has that benefited the Ugandan community for both companies and clients?
Right. So since they're academic, for example, and they have all the university networks behind them, we like to support them, and they're nonprofit. So we give them a discount at the exchange for services. And likewise, they can do things for us that like providing cash fill in some cases, or donating equipment or whatever, that other networks might be reluctant to do because they might worry about subsidizing their competitors. So Renew, for example, as a university research and education network, doesn't have the same concerns. And so we've been able to collaborate on a variety of issues just by nature of our mutual nonprofit interests that just would have been a bit more complicated. And they're also a huge eyeball network. So just having them at the exchange, because they have so many universities behind them, has been a huge benefit for us. In terms of attracting CDNs and other connectivity networks. They also have their own data centers and those content and so on. But yeah.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you very much for that nice presentation. Let's now go to Donald. Donald works at Jinx, and Jinx is one of the first internet exchange points in Africa. Donald, please, can you share with us the story of this powerful internet exchange point? How did it evolve over the years to become what it is today?
Thanks very much. So our exchange point started like many others. We had a switch in 1996 that was deployed in a cabinet, and we started connecting peers to that. We grew from that, and it's important to note that this was deployed under the organization of ISPA, the South African Internet Service Provider Association. In 2014, we then, INX was formed to become an independent or autonomous structure, still reporting to ISPA, but so that we could manage the operations day to day of the exchange points in South Africa. And we didn't have, we could speak to content distribution networks that didn't, think that it was important to belong to a internet service provider association. And it was also around about this time that we started to go multi-site as well. That was actually Durban, the city that I'm from. That was our first multi-site exchange point, where we connected 2 exchange points, 2 data centers together. And Jinx now is in 6 data centers connected with dark fiber. I think we have 1 last link to get onto dark fiber. And what's really important there is we could not do this without the good relationships that INX has with our community. The dark fiber providers allow us to do this, not for free, and that is part of the reason why we do have to charge port fees. We would love it if we didn't have to, but at the end of the day, all these running exchange point costs money, and so that is why we have to charge port fees. So that is really a very, right now we have over 200 members across our exchange points in South Africa, and well over a few hundred gigs of traffic. But what's very important as well, that we have a strong community behind us, and we basically go into a data center if our members feel that it's important to go into a new data center that is built in Johannesburg or Cape Town, Durban. And as I mentioned in my introduction, that we are deploying an exchange point in Nelson Mandela Bay, previously known as Port Elizabeth. And because the community wants us here, they see benefit in that. And we're really excited about engaging with all the internet service providers here to bring them together, start working together to build an ecosystem to bring the content providers in and closer to their users.
All right, thank you, Donald. So just to follow up on the, Jinx is like one of the leading internet exchange points in Africa. So what are the challenges that you are facing in trying to maintain this leadership position?
Well, I think in different markets have different challenges. We heard it from Fiona that regulation was a big issue there for them. We're very fortunate that here regulation, we have good regulation, so that allows us to be able to build internet exchange points without much of an issue. The industry here sees peering as free. The other exchange points, they offer so-called free ports, and so the industry in South Africa says peering should be completely free. And as I mentioned before, running a multi-site exchange point, there's no such thing as free, really. Somebody has to be paying for that at the end of the day. So that's one of our own challenges. Another challenge that I picked up while I've been down here is that many of the smaller networks that need exchange points don't have autonomous system numbers or Afrinic resources. So this is a little bit of a sort of shout out to Afrinic to say, one of the challenges is that these small networks, and I know dealing with other networks in Africa, the cost of getting resources is very high. And that's one of the stumbling blocks for them to get an ASN, because you have to have an AS in order to connect to the exchange point. And so without that, that is one of the challenges as well. And that's it really from me for now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Donald. We'll now go to Mr. Jean-Baptiste Milogo, who is part of the founders of Burkina Faso Internet Exchange Point, and he will share with us the journey from inception to what we have today. Over to you, Jean-Baptiste.
Thanks, Stephen, and thanks everyone. So give me just time to share my slides.
Yeah, so interesting questions and answers are happening on the Q&A. If you have questions, please feel free to type there. If you have any comments, please also feel free to type in the chat section. We've seen good participation in the background on the chat section with people like Sylvain Baya, Bill Woodcock, and Stephen. We have a lot of nice resources on the chat, so please follow both channels. Thank you, Jean-Baptiste. Over to you.
Thanks, Stefan, and good morning again, everyone. So it's a good opportunity for me to share here the experience and the story of Burkina Faso Internet Exchange Point with BFIX. So as background, as you may know, Burkina Faso is a lockland country. This means that there is no possibility to have direct access to submarine cable. And to bring internet in this country, it's very challenging for the local stockholders because the fiber link is very expensive and there is many challenge in terms of fiber cut and civil activity, so we can bring many problems for operation point of view. And during our journey, I think many things contribute to bring this BFIX live. First of all, there was, I would say, a collaboration between many kind of organizations moving from public fund to Axis project to ISOC contribution, starting from 2012, with many capacity building for network engineer. And as you may know, in general, I would say in Francophone country, there is sometimes bureaucracy, and to manage and to mitigate this, we start by building two kinds of sub-community, a legal one and a technical one. Why we do that? It's because to be able to bring many stakeholders together working coming from a sector where there are competitors, it was very important for us to have a kind of bylaw where everyone there contribute and agree. That is why we start with a legal entity. And this legal entity have the support of their, I would say, Gov, to be sure that it should be an open discussion and be sure that at the end, the type of association or the company will be which is more profitable for the community. And in the same way, the technical team was working to design what will be where we'll install this switch fabric, who will manage it, what are the best practices, to be sure that from every side we are all on the same information. And during this formation and based on those subgroup working output, we bring to the fact that the most type of organization will be a non-profit, an association with board where an open board inside local community and with no, I would say, power from, I would say, Gov representative or simple member representative, to be sure that for any decision to be taken, there is no power coming from any entity we can impact this organization. The other thing also we try to do, because we only win from, I would say, initial material, initial equipment and donation from Gov and partners. And we decide to do with no administrative office. no full-time staff. This means that the operational cost is very low, and we need to be focused only on how to operate the exchange point and to bring network peering together in the country. And from this, I will say, low-cost experience, we start from 2 peers in 2015 to 12 peers today, where you will find all the major player in country, all operator are in country. And based on the fact that we are a local country, it means that we need to offload as we can do the traffic in local. We try to discuss with some major CDN players, and today we have 4 installed in Burkina. And based on the experience, on the success experience of BFIX facility in Ouagadougou, we find that from members, there was a resiliency need. They need to be sure that in case of, I would say, outage or incident or any outage for BFIX facility in Ouagadougou, they will be able to get access to some content to continue peering together. And to reply to these needs, we start working and establish a new POP in Bobo Dioulasso, which is the second town in the country. But in our case, it's not an extension of the initial, I would say, POP in Ouagadougou to Bobo Dioulasso. It is 2 separate exchange points, which means that there is no direct fiber connectivity between them. And not using this contribute also to keep low our operational costs, because one of the key factors for us is that one. And from our starting, I would say for the project starting in 2012 with training and the operational phase in 2015, we grow from 2 meg daily to 50 gig today. For a local country, this was a good experience for all operators, because a part of, I would say, bringing better experience for access to the content, it was also, it was bringing down the latency from more than 300 to, I would say, 10 milliseconds or 15 milliseconds. So basically, this was our background. But during this journey, was facing some, we are facing some challenge, because as I would say, association, we need to keep the governance model neutral. I know that Nishal have talked about this, maybe Fiona also, but for us, our success today is due to the fact that we have a neutral governance model with no power coming from Gov in our management. We are trying also to maintain our operational costs low and pushing caches to the members who can support their own caches and to do not focus all the services at BFIX side. The other one, the other challenge or issue we are facing is, like, you know, that in Burkina there is, I would say, no real carrier neutral in world standard. And this is something we are advocating for, because sometimes it can bring some impact on how to welcome some international player in country, because they need to have a kind of security, a kind of confidence before coming to. So this is one of the challenges we are working on with local stockholders. And as mentioned by one of the speakers, capacity building is for us something we need to improve, to provide to our members, because sometimes we have noticed that some of the peers can be connected to the exchange point, but they are not sending all the traffic or all the traffic, or they are not using all the services we are providing on ground, because we can offload better than what we are doing. So in this perspective, we are working with them and to be able to support them as ITF service, but for free, and also to push them to adopt some, I would say, some technology, like how to move them to IPv6, how to get them compliant with manners, because for us, apart of being, I would say, a peering facility, we need also to be a kind of counselor for our members. And one of our last target or objective is to bring exchange point all the 28 African members in country, because some of them do not have, I would say, a strong network that sometimes needs more fees to buy the backhauling. So that's all from our side. Where we are coming from, and you have here some QR code. And if you want to learn more about our traffic, our members in detail, and which kind of CDN we are currently having in Burkina, and it is really useful for our community having the fix in Burkina. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean-Baptiste, to 50 gigabits. We hope to hear from you soon about the terabit data sharing on your facility. Let's go back to Nishal now. Nishal, please, can you tell us how you think ISPs, internet exchange points, can collaborate with each other in order to advance interconnection in the whole region of Africa?
Sure, Stephen. So I think for a long part, internet exchange operators have, at least in our region, have worked in many islands. We didn't really know each other. We might have met at a meeting or something like that. And it was actually in, the dates are going to lose me. It was actually in Johannesburg in 2012 that myself, Frank, Barry at the time from the IXP, and somebody from the Lusaka IX at the time, we were standing in a circle, and the question was, how do we contact each other? We all know who we are, but what if Jinx needed to speak to the KIXP on something? What's the mechanism for the institution to the institution of Jinx to speak to the institution at the KIXP, the institution at Lusaka IX? And we came up with the idea of creating a mailing list, and that mailing list over time has morphed into something called the African Internet Exchange Operators List, AFIX. And that's basically a way where internet exchange point operators in Africa are able to ask questions and able to provide support for other internet exchange point operators in Africa. So that's happening behind the scenes already. Exchange operators have I want to call it a secure room, because we generally only let exchange point operators from Africa in there, but there's other useful folk as well. There's folks from PCH, there's folks from ISOC, I think there's somebody from the NSRC as well. And, they can ask advice freely in a safe space, and they get advice that way. Of course, there are other organizations as well. There's the ISOCs of the world, there's the PCH, there's NSRC, and we all provide support, usually on request when asked, or when somebody reaches out to us to say, hey, we want to do this. Can you assist us? Can you provide us with resources? And a lot of the resources you're hearing about in the chat, there's websites, there's equipment that people have given up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I personally like the closed mailing list. When we formed the AFIX, I took careful wording. I still like the wording we chose, and that it was an ad hoc group of exchange point operators that are just trying to help each other get started and moving in the right direction. And I think that's important. I think that we say, at least in this part of the world, that internet exchange point operators don't compete with each other. So the exchange point operator that's running an exchange in Johannesburg isn't really competing with the exchange point operator that's running an internet exchange in Nairobi, isn't competing with an exchange point operator in Uganda. And because you're not competing across these different markets, it makes it very easy to say, these are the lessons that I've learned. Look at my scarred fingers and don't do that. And I can say, honestly, having been on the list for many years now, some of the stories and some of the lessons shared is absolutely wonderful. You actually see the don't do this, it's not going to work for you kind of messages that come through, which is very, very useful.
All right. Thank you very much, Nishal. Now let's go back to Kyle. Kyle, how do you see the role of IXPs evolving in Uganda and the broader African region?
Well, the latest thing that's happening in Uganda is that we've expanded into this carrier neutral data center. And So our hope is that by doing that and having this symbiotic relationship with the carrier neutral environment that we're in, so long as the policy and regulatory environment allows, we hope to attract inland regional networks and international networks and content more into Uganda, so that Uganda can function as somewhat of an inland regional hub. And that's something actually that we see in different ways across the region as carrier neutral data centers spring up and everybody wants an IXP in their facility. Whether or not that will actually play out that way, I don't know. I think it'll vary market to market, but that's the current state of play in Uganda and in many other places around the region.
Okay, thank you. Fiona, in your opinion, how can IXPs contribute to building a resilient digital infrastructure and facilitating economic growth in Kenya?
You're asking me very tough questions. A resilient infrastructure basically means that there has to be consideration of the organization being able to prevail even through business disruptions of any kind. So when you're asking how exchange points can contribute towards building a resilient digital infrastructure, I'll start by saying, I think one thing to understand and to appreciate is that exchange points are at the heart of any digital infrastructure within any ecosystem. So if you have all these digital infrastructure set up at the core of it, and what helps that infrastructure then grow is the exchange point. And if everybody can aggregate their traffic into that exchange point, then you begin to see the capacities of internet demand by the service providers and by the capacity of internet demand by the customers also going up. If I take a case in point, at the exchange point today, KXP, we've brought together the carriers, the content distribution networks, we've got a variety of platforms that are doing various things, including like the M-Pesa platform, we've got payment platforms there, we've got the mobile operators, we've got ISPs, we've got education and research networks, we've got KCD academic content going through, we've got the government, e-government services going through, we've got the Kenya Revenue Authority and the entire tax revenue system dependent on KXP for the country. So that puts KXP right at the heart of the digital infrastructure. And that means that for us to be able to do this and to contribute towards a resilient digital infrastructure, we have to make sure that our processes, our systems are functional and are robust enough to be able to handle traffic continuity even during disruptions. And this was for KXP, this was put to test during COVID. We had a country shut down in March, and then we began to experience network port upgrade demands from our members. For starters, we had bought backup equipment, but our backup equipment was handling mostly 1 gig ports, and we had very little equipment that would handle the 10 gig ports. I think our 10 gig ports were very limited based on the kind of equipment we had bought and put in place. So then by May, when upgrades, now the demand for home user internet went up because of virtual engagements, virtual office and everything, we realized that we had a problem. Our Nexus switches, brand new, could not support the traffic throughput. We ended up getting support from the Toronto Internet Exchange Point on how to resolve the issue and what needed to be done. However, we had to make a quick decision to keep the exchange point up. So what happened is 2 of our members, pairing members, Telkom Kenya and Liquid Telkom, donated switches for use by the exchange point into the exchange point facility. And then we're able to get all the pairing members to connect to this gear. And once that was done, we were stable for a period of time. but the stability was limited because the gear was also temporal. They also needed their gear back because they're also getting demands from the consumers on increased traffic for the exchange. So we were able to source new gear, and we now began to realize, sorry, there is disruption where I am because someone else is on a phone, but he's walking out. Okay. Yeah, so basically we were able to get the new gear in, and we were getting, because we're getting demands of 1 gig to 10 gig ports. So now we began to buy 10 gig port switches. But by the time the year was over, we got to December, we started getting requests for 100 gig ports. So we have had to change the way we purchased gear. Before we'd buy gear every 2 years. Now we've had to change the way we are buying, and we are buying gear every 6 months. We are having to upgrade because the demand for members to get to new traffic levels has been increasing. And so we have had to also make sure that we have a clear procurement system. So our processes, internal processes, right from the onboarding, the procurement, upgrade of members, all our processes have had to be reviewed and improved on so that there is a seamless flow of service to our members. When a request comes through, we work within the shortest time possible to make sure that that request is addressed. So we are very clear and agile operational procedures. We have had to develop a business continuity management plan. We've had to make sure that the standards of network integrity in terms of cybersecurity and change management procedures are very clear. We've had to make sure that our membership support policy is very, very clear. We are also putting in place, right now we're working on putting in place the risk management and plans and strategy. We have had to ensure network redundancy. So we are encouraging our members to be in at least more than one location. About a week ago, there was an earthquake, a tremor in Nairobi. And so that actually got us thinking to really finish up this process, because we need to make sure whatever happens, we can still operate from our different. So we've not interconnected the exchange points yet. They're still running in the installation, though we are working on getting a ring between our different exchange point locations, being present in Nairobi at ADC, at the Ikolo data center, at PAX data center, and then in Mombasa at Ikolo. And we are hoping to also be present at IX Africa. So that means that we need to keep this traffic locally and within one ring, and each being a redundant site that can be able to pick up in case one location is not able to. And then making sure that we have got a very clear procurement procedure so that then we know at what stage should the technical team be putting in requests for new gear and such, so that, because we also have realized that the manufacturing processes globally are taking so much longer. And that means that we need to be able to just ensure that we order in good time, giving time to the lead period of manufacturing and then the lead period of shipment, so that gear comes in good enough time for us to be able to continue to ensure business continuity for the exchange and our services. And as we do this, we're also working with our members and ensuring that there is capacity building and training and understanding of our processes, our procedures, so that everyone is clear on what needs to happen. However, we still maintain certain standards. For example, monitoring the port traffic, so that all our traffic for the port members are not notified when it is at 70% throughput, that they need to work on an upgrade, so that even they are able to follow through with their internal procedures and to be able to just make sure that everything happens as it should. So that has been one of the most game-changing experiences that KXP has had, and it has made us become more professional in how we address our issues and also how we engage with the peering community, because if we do not adapt that level of professionalism, then it becomes very difficult for us to be able to explain, for example, to the government institutions on why e-government services are down or are not getting through the exchange, or there is delay. And we've had experiences where the Kenya Revenue Authority end users, their customers, their staff, who are used to a quick experience on the internet, complain when there is when it slows down, when their ports get heavy and need to be upgraded, or additional ports need to be turned up, the customers already complained that the internet is not working. But it's not that it's not working, it's just that it's slow because the throughput has increased. And we've noticed every time we get to the period when the tax filing for the country is due in June, we have to turn up additional ports for the Kenya Revenue Authority because the traffic throughput is very high. Since today, Kenya Revenue Authority handles everything online. So that is what I think, based on that experience, I think an exchange point can contribute significantly to the digital infrastructure resilience and growth of the economy, in not just in Kenya, but any country within our region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fiona. We are almost running short of time, and let's move to Jean-Baptiste. Jean-Baptiste, please tell us what are the contributions of Internet Society in 2 minutes to building these important fabrics in Africa.
Thanks a lot, Stephen. And so here, I will try to share some activity Internet Society are doing to support this initiative since the decade. So basically, as you may know, ISOC is working to support IXP since the decade in several ways. We are working with our partner to develop, which means that we can contribute to deploy new IXP, but we are also helping some existing ISP, which means that if your community or I would say your switch fabric is there and you need to have some kind of revamp, so we can work on. And we are also working to support the regional IXP association like AFIX. I think Kyle and Michelle have talked about a little bit what AFIX is doing. And for this year, add to those activities we was already doing, we are introducing what we call 50-50 vision, which is an ambition to support, I would say, any market, any country to be able to offload at least a half of traffic in their country, which means that we need to serve a half traffic for each country in those countries. There is some market where these objectives have already been achieved, like South Africa, Kenya, or Nigeria. It means that those market players can contribute with ISOC to achieve this vision in Africa. Basically, we will select some market and where we'll work closely with IXP and to be able to achieve this objective. But to be concrete, how we can contribute to build or to support IXP community. As you may know, ISOC is in partnership with, I would say, 2 main organizations currently, ICANN and Meta. And through those partnerships, we'll support over the 3 coming years IXP in Africa, especially for our partnership with ICANN through Coalition for Digital Africa. It means supporting especially African IXP with these funding partners. And for Meta, it will be also a funding, IXP funding over 3 years, but in global. This means that for African IXP, there is 2 chances to win. You have ICANN part and you have also Meta one. In concrete, how this funding program work? I have put here a QR code. You can scan it and have a full access on the call for application page. And we do supporting 3 key objectives: increase the traffic in Africa, providing support, and also trying to identify some champion in some market and get them developing the local entity, local community. And for the focus area, just when you are applying for those funds, you need to be coming from emerging economy, low income economy, small island. I know that in Africa, there is some small island where we need to support having IXP, like the last one in Cape Verde, where we support to have an IXP last year in December. That we still have some island where we can still provide support. And if you want to have full detail on how this works, you just feel free to scan this QR code, and you'll be able to prepare your application, and we'll be happy to review your application. A part of those funding program, ISOC have also some, I would say, some regular annual event where we are trying to support IXP community and IXP development of Africa. In Central Africa, you have Central Africa Peering Forum. The last one is already over. But you have for West Africa a coming West Africa Peering in June. It will be a virtual event just because this year we have in-person African Peering event in Accra. So we think that it could be it's not more relevant to have two in-person events in the same region. So maybe for next year we will have West African Peering Forum in person, and Africa will move in other side in Africa. Apart of that, we are also providing, and we talk a lot about capacity building here. So we have some resources covering network deployment, exchange point, I would say, overview and how to teach or to explain it to non-technical team, because some of the time the issue can be more linked to management team than technical one, and also some course covering introduction to network operation. So basically, those are the key activity we are still providing. So peering events in partnership with AFIX, and the next peering event will be in Ghana, Accra. I hope that I will meet most of you there and to exchange during 3 days on any aspect of peering, and with many players coming from anywhere from Africa and outside Africa. So
thank you.
That's all from my side, and feel free to share any question and any clarification if needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fiona, we have some questions for you on the chat. So if you can look at them and then type the answer, while we take Nishal to share the opportunities that we have with PCH in developing internet exchange points, in particular in Africa.
Okay, so what do we do? So, you know, the story of PCH is that we were actually started to help build the second ever internet exchange point in the world. The first ever internet exchange point happened on the east coast of the United States. It was largely an experiment to see, is this thing going to work? And when the industry discovered this thing is going to work, and they decided that they wanted a second internet exchange on the west coast of the United States, May West at the time, and that's largely what PCH was formed to do, to say, hey, there's this thing called internet exchanges, and it seems like it's going to be a really good thing. Can we have somebody, an organization created to be able to take this and spread this to the rest of the world? And that's literally PCH's story. If you want more detail, Bill is in the chat. You can ask him, or I can give you a longer version of the story at a later stage. So largely what we do is we help to support exchange points, and we do that in one of several ways. We provide equipment for startup internet exchanges. There's a lot of discussion in the chat about how do I bill and how do I cost an exchange. And my advice, as somebody that works at PCH and as somebody who's run an internet exchange point for well over 2 decades, is to say, stop thinking about money right now. Try to think about how to get people to connect. And the more that you do to help keep the internet exchange free and to help keep the exchange easy for people to get connected, the better the chance you're going to have of getting people to get connected to the exchange. So the likes of PCH, and you would have heard ISOC as well, donate equipment, because we think it's important that internet exchanges start off free. If you want to bill 18 years down the line, you can have that message with your membership, and by all means go ahead then. But at least when you're starting, get the basics in place and get it all up and running. And aside from providing equipment, what PCH also does is we provide operational support. So we'll work with your team and we'll teach you how to run an exchange. What are the elements that you need to be worried about? What are things that you may obviously have missed? As I said from the start, my hands are very, very burnt. I've made lots of mistakes in my time as a techie. So, we try to teach you how to not make those mistakes and how to make sure that what you're doing supports your community. We do workshops in your community. So, for example, somebody in the chat says South Sudan doesn't have an exchange. It might be because the community in South Sudan doesn't understand it. Maybe the network operators are a little hazy on what needs to happen. So we will come in, we will work with your community as a neutral organization, and we'll teach them why and how it's important to do peering, to the degree sometimes of even doing BGP training, so that they're skilled enough to get connected to them. We also provide a DNS service. We're the world's largest Anycast DNS operator that you've never ever heard of. So we Anycast more than 100 easily CCTLDs. We're present at over 260 internet exchanges across the world. And once an exchange is up and running, we'll very happily put on a PCH DNS node at your infrastructure. And what that does is it makes the DNS faster for you and for, well, anyone else that's Anycasting there. So I always like to say, we bring the world's DNS to you. We'll give you a copy of it. And especially in our part of the world, where you still have countries that are landlocked. You still have countries that access the internet primarily via satellite. It's important to be able to do anything you can to optimize internet traffic, and being able to have a local DNS instance of root servers, country CCTLDs, etc. That's very helpful. Now we're also working with Quad 9. I'm sure everybody on this webinar knows what Quad 9 is. It's 9.9.9.9. It's the world's first and safest DNS resolver. And we've been working with Afrinic. I can see Cedric at the bottom, so he'll talk more about that. But we'll also deploy an instance of Quad 9 at your internet exchange, so you can use that as free DNS recursor, and that'll help improve the speed and security and keep your DNS requests nice and private. I'd like to say that we try to work our best to try to make an exchange point work for you. PCH doesn't charge for the work we do, so I'm not trying to sell you an internet exchange point. I'm not trying to sell you a monitoring service or anything like that. We firmly believe that exchange points are pivotal to changing the internet economy in a country, and so everything that we do is targeted around making that work for you in your country. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Nishal. Thank you very much to all our panelists. It was very insightful. Now I'd like to welcome Cedric, Engagement Manager at Community Engagement Manager at Afrinic, to share with us what are the opportunities that Afrinic offers to Internet exchange points. Cedric, over to you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon or good morning, everyone. My name is Cedric Mbeye. I am Stakeholder Development Manager, Technical at Afrinic. Let me quickly share my screen, just a quick presentation for all of us. So, as you know, we at Afrinic, apart from doing our core business, which is related to everything IPs, policy, and also the management of resources, we are also contributing to building internet exchange point in Africa. So quickly, I will talk about what we do. But first point that I would like to mention is actually related to what Afrinic does as in terms of policy. So we have in the CPM a policy, a part of a section of the CPM, so the section 564, which is assignment to critical infrastructure, meaning that today any internet exchange point can come to Afrinic and request for resources. And based on the justification, and if you are eligible, you receive those resources for free as part of the policy that has been developed by the community. So please reach out, and for those who don't have the link to the CPM, you have it down there, and we can also share it on the chat later. But also, we have another program, which is the Critical Infrastructure Development Program. And what we do in this program is We want a secure and accessible internet in Africa, and we have put the development of critical internet infrastructure at the center of this initiative because we think that this is important. And what is it about? It's not only about providing sponsorship and equipment to those critical infrastructure, but also it's about providing technical expertise, support. We also do awareness. So we raise awareness about internet exchange points. So we talk to the communities for them to be able to understand the importance of internet exchange point and how it can help digital growth in Africa. And also we build capacity. And I will talk more about it a bit later, but I know that time is short. But, and also to do all this, we are not going alone because internet is big and internet is a force for good, and we are many stakeholders in this initiative. So we work with PCH, with Internet Society, with ICANN, with RIPE NCC, with ISC, NetNode, DNS OARC, and all this not only to provide capacity building when it's needed, and in multiple language. It can be English, it can be French, and sometimes in also Arabic when we have people to do so. But we support each other really to make sure that we really make internet exchange points successful in Africa. We are supporting deployment of root servers. We also support deployment of DNS nodes like the PCH nodes in Africa. And this is a new partnership that we started 1 or 2 years ago. And this has been very successful. So far, we have been able to deploy 7 DNS nodes, but actually we have been able, overall, we supported more than 20 critical internet infrastructure in Africa, and we really look forward to support more. So please don't hesitate to reach out. We are here for you. And I know that Stefan is looking at me, so I will stop here. So thank you for your attention. And if there is any question, I am happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cedric. Thank you very much to all our panelists. It was really a fruitful session. We have some of the attendees on YouTube requesting for some contact from Stephen. So if you can share your contact, that will be good. Now, I'm thinking of an initiative of writing something on the story of internet exchange points. So those of you who are not on the panel, feel free to reach out to us on our email, event@afnic.net, so that we can build together the story of internet exchange points and share on our new space for the rest of the world to learn, and you know, for those who are still struggling with building their internet exchange points to you know, use these resources and thrive. We have shared the link to our survey in the chat, so please feel free to dedicate 1 or 2 minutes to, you know, give us feedback on this event so that we can improve moving forward. I'll just give 1 minute to each of the participants, to each of the panelists, to give a closing remark. 1 minute, not more, please, because we are now 8 minutes above the time. So I'll start with Mrs. Fiona, ladies first.
I think this is an interesting conversation and a story that we need to continue talking about, because we still haven't achieved the goals that were set up when exchange points, when PCH setting up, helping us set up exchange points on this continent. And that means that there's quite a lot of work to do, and there's a lot that needs to be done. And one of the things that KXP has done over the years is we always reach out. If you want to know how nitty-gritties of really how to set up and you need help, We will be able to help you with the procedural aspects. We don't have the finances or capital because we are pretty much a non-for-profit, but we are happy to put in our time to work with anyone who wants to set up an exchange to just help them understand what our processes are, what we do, how we do it. And we've been doing that with our friends in the East African region, exchanging ideas with Kyle, with at UIX and the Rwanda Exchange and TICS. And we're happy to do that with the rest of the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Donald. 1 minute, closing remarks.
All right, thanks very much for having me. I think just in closing from me, making sure that an internet exchange point works means that there's good regulation from government. Good regulation normally means that they don't get involved at all. If local government wants to support the exchange point in some way, use the example in Durban, our local municipality supplied the connectivity between the two data centers to connect the exchange point together. So that shows how government can work towards working with an exchange point. When you do build a good exchange point, then the CDNs come to you. When the CDNs come, so do the ISPs, so do the corporates. And so as that continues to feed on creating a sustainable internet exchange point. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Jean-Baptiste, over to you.
Thanks, Stefan, and thanks everyone for this brief session. And at Internet Society, we strongly believe that IXP are a key element of, I will say, internet development, but also digital transformation in Africa and everywhere in the world. So we'll be happy to support with funding where needed, and with also capacity building or advice. So feel free to reach us for any kind of support. And we can redirect also to some CDN players if you do not have some contact. So, so we'll be happy to support, and I will be happy also to welcome you in Accra for AFPIF in August. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Kyle, closing remarks.
Yeah, I don't have much to say. I think collectively we've all covered a lot of ground, but I would like to thank Afrinic for organizing this. It's really great to see that we have over 200 people here today, and I think that's really great and helps promote network interconnection and peering around the region, you know, as we have these discussions. If anybody has any questions about the Ugandan internet ecosystem or wants to peer at the Uganda Internet Exchange, please feel free to contact me. I'll drop my email in the chat. And I'd also just like to remind everybody that we have just opened up registration for the Africa Peering and Interconnection Forum, otherwise known as AFPIF. It'll be in Ghana in August later this year. So please check that out and please join us. It'd be great to see everybody there. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. For the AFPIF, are there opportunity for sponsorship for those willing to participate with limited resources?
We haven't announced anything like that yet. We will, I think there's still some work going on in the background to try to figure that out. And if that opportunity becomes available, we will announce it on our website, on Twitter, and of course on our closed mailing list for IXPs that are in the room.
All right, thank you very much. Nishal, the short version of your closing remarks, please.
The short version. Well, I want to go back to what I said when you first asked me what I think about exchanges. I agree with everything that's been said in closing by everybody here. Just remember, for those folks that don't have exchanges, or for those network operators that are intentionally choosing to send your traffic overseas, you're doing the one thing that we try not to get you to do. You're sending your money, our African money, to developed countries overseas. And you need to ask yourself, why are you doing this? You need to say, do I really feel that I have way too many dollars that I need to subsidize an AM6 or a Lynx or a DKIX or whomever that it's going to be there? So think carefully. And if you're like me, if you're a poor African that's living and trying to make the internet better in Africa, I can guarantee you that not just myself, PCH, or any of the panelists here can show you a better use of your money by helping to develop the exchange ecosystem in Africa. My email address was sent many times in the chats. You're welcome to write to me, and I can show you how. Short enough for you, Stephen?
Thank you very much. That was very short version of your closing remark. And as we come to the end of this panel discussion, I am very, very grateful to our esteemed panelists for sharing their valuable insights and experiences. And we look forward to having more of such discussion in order to build the African Internet ecosystem. Thank you very much, and see you in our next edition. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Please don't forget to fill the survey. It is shared on the chat. Please, that will help us to improve our next editions and also build on what we are really doing well. Thank you very much.